You've been drinking till your eyes are glassy, you're sweating, smells like alcohol in here.
I'm sick.
Every drunk driver claims they're sick. Every drunk driver claims they only had 2 beers. Every drunk driver has an excuse.
Imagine this. You're driving home from work. It's a Thursday afternoon. The sun is warm through your windshield. You're thinking about what to make for dinner, and then you feel it. That first tremor in your hands. That cold sweat breaking across your forehead. Your vision starting to blur at the edges. And you know you're in trouble. So you do the responsible thing. You pull over, you put your car in park. You reach for the emergency glucose tablets in your purse that could save your life. But your hands won't cooperate, your brain is fogging over. And then you see the police car pulling up behind you. And you think, thank God, help is here. But help isn't coming, because the officer walking towards your car has already decided what you are. Before we start, tell me where you're tuning in from. Hit like and subscribe. This is the place for stories that truly stick. Now, let's begin. My friends, what I'm about to share with you is a true story. Every word of it happened, and it's captured on body camera footage that would eventually be seen by millions of people around the world. This is the story of Sarah Mitchell, a 29-year-old woman who did everything right, and almost died because of it. But before we get into what happened that day, we need to understand who Sarah is. Sarah Mitchell has been living with type 1 diabetes since she was 11 years old. That's 18 years of her life. 18 years of pricking her finger multiple times a day to check her blood sugar. 18 years of calculating every carbohydrate that goes into her mouth. 18 years of injecting insulin into her stomach, her thighs, her arms. Let me explain something about type 1 diabetes because a lot of people don't really understand it. This isn't about eating too much sugar. This isn't about not exercising enough. This is an autoimmune disease. Sarah's own body attacked the cells in her pancreas that produce insulin. And without insulin, your body can't process glucose, can't turn food into energy. So Sarah's pancreas? It's broken. Permanently. She will inject insulin for the rest of her life, or she will die. And here's the terrifying part. Managing diabetes is a constant balancing act. Too much insulin and your blood sugar crashes. Too little and it spikes. Miss a meal and you crash. Get stressed and it spikes. Exercise more than usual and it crashes. Your life is a mathematical equation that never stops calculating, and if you get the math wrong, your body shuts down. Sarah knows this. She's lived this for 18 years. She works as a librarian at an elementary school in Columbus, Ohio. She helps kindergartners find books about dinosaurs. She reads stories during circle time. She's good at her job. She loves her job. And on this particular Thursday, she had lunch at noon, a turkey sandwich and an apple, and she took her insulin just like she always does. But somewhere in the calculation, something went wrong. Maybe the sandwich had less protein than she thought. Maybe she was more active than usual, shelving books and chasing after energetic 5-year-olds. Whatever the reason, her blood sugar started to drop. And when your blood sugar drops, it happens fast. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sarah is driving home, and she feels it starting. First, the trembling in her hands. Just a slight shake at first, like she's had too much coffee, but she knows what it means. Then the cold sweat. It breaks out across her forehead, down her back, making her blouse stick to her skin. Her thoughts start to feel sluggish, like she's thinking through fog, like her brain is running on a dying battery. This is hypoglycemia. This is a blood sugar crash, and it's dangerous. Normal blood sugar is between 70 and 100 milligrams per deciliter. Below 70, you start to feel symptoms. Below 50, you start to lose coherent thought. Below 40, you can lose consciousness. Below 30, you can have seizures. Below 20, you can die. Sarah always carries emergency glucose tablets in her purse. Little chalky tablets that taste like candy, designed to spike your blood sugar fast when you're crashing. She reaches for her purse on the passenger seat, but her hand is shaking so badly that she knocks it onto the floor. She tries to reach down while keeping her eyes on the road, but her vision is blurring. She can feel her heart racing, her body flooding with adrenaline as it tries to compensate for the lack of glucose reaching her brain. And Sarah makes a decision that probably saves her life. She pulls over. She sees a quiet residential street coming up. Tree-lined sidewalks. Nice houses. She puts on her turn signal, though her hand fumbles the lever twice before she gets it right. She guides her car to the curb. She puts it in park. She's trying to reach for her purse again, trying to find those glucose tablets, but her arms feel so heavy. Her thoughts are scattering like leaves in the wind. She knows she needs sugar. She knows she needs help, but the fog in her brain is getting thicker, and she can't quite organize herself enough to do anything about it. She slumps against the driver's seat, breathing hard, sweating through her blouse, trying desperately to stay conscious. That's when she sees the police car in her rearview mirror, and for just a moment she feels relief. Because police officers are trained to help people, right? They're first responders. They know about medical emergencies, right? Officer Derek Martinez is 26 years old. He graduated from the police academy 9 months ago. He's been on solo patrol for 5 months, and he's eager. He wants to prove himself. He wants to make arrests. He wants to show his sergeant that he's capable of handling real police work. When Martinez sees Sarah's car pull over in the middle of the afternoon on a residential street, his radar goes up. Erratic driving. Pulling over for no apparent reason. Classic signs of impaired driving. He activates his lights and pulls in behind her. He runs her plate. No warrants. Vehicle registered to Sarah Mitchell. Everything checks out on paper. Martinez unbuckles his seatbelt and activates his body camera with a tap to his chest. The camera will record everything that happens next. Every word, every action, every terrible decision. He walks up to the driver's side window and taps on the glass. Through the window, Sarah is slumped in the driver's seat. Her head is tilted back. Her eyes are half closed. Her face is pale and covered in sweat. Her breathing is rapid and shallow. To Martinez, this looks exactly like severe intoxication. Sarah hears the tapping. She turns her head slowly toward the window. Her eyes struggle to focus on the uniformed figure standing outside her car. She tries to reach for the window button, but her hand misses twice before she finds it. The window lowers halfway. Martinez leans down, and that's when he thinks he smells something. Maybe it's just the smell of sweat. Maybe it's the fruity odor that diabetics sometimes produce when their blood chemistry is off. But Martinez's brain interprets it as alcohol, and just like that, confirmation bias sets in. "Ma'am," Martinez says, and his voice already has that edge of suspicion. "You've been drinking today. Your eyes are glassy. You're sweating. Smells like alcohol in here." Sarah tries to answer. God, she tries. She knows what she wants to say. She wants to say she's diabetic, that her sugar is crashing, that she needs help. But her tongue feels thick and clumsy in her mouth. The words come out slurred, distorted, each syllable requiring enormous effort. "No, no, need sugar. I'm sick." Martinez crosses his arms. He's heard this before. Every drunk driver claims they're sick. Every drunk driver claims they only had 2 beers. Every drunk driver has an excuse. "Yeah, that's what they all say," he says. "Look at me. How much have you had?" Sarah is fading. She can feel herself slipping away. The darkness at the edges of her vision is getting wider. She's running out of time. She lifts her right arm. The movement is slow and uncoordinated, like she's moving underwater. She raises her wrist toward the window. On her wrist is a silver medical ID bracelet. The kind with the red medical symbol engraved on the front. The kind that's specifically designed to alert first responders to critical medical information. Sarah is trying to show him. She's trying to communicate the one thing that matters. It's medical bracelet, right here. The body camera captures it in perfect clarity. The afternoon sun reflects off the polished silver. The red medical symbol is unmistakable. Martinez's eyes flick toward it for a fraction of a second. He sees it. The camera proves he sees it, but he doesn't process it, because he's already decided what he's looking at. He's looking at a drunk driver trying to dodge responsibility. In his mind, the slurred speech, the sweating, the glassy eyes, the smell, all of it confirms intoxication. The bracelet doesn't fit his narrative. So his brain dismisses it as irrelevant, as just another excuse. "Ma'am, slurring your words doesn't help," Martinez says, and his tone is harder now. "I'm not buying the excuse. Step out of the vehicle." Let me pause here for a moment, because this is the moment where everything goes wrong. This is the moment where a young officer's certainty becomes deadly. Sarah's hand falls back to her lap. She can't fight anymore. She can't make him understand. Her blood sugar has dropped below 40 now. Her brain is running on fumes. She's still conscious, but barely. She's clinging to awareness through sheer willpower and terror. She knows what's happening to her. She knows she's dying, and she knows this officer doesn't believe her. "Step out of the vehicle," Martinez orders again. Sarah doesn't move. She can't move. Her muscles aren't responding properly. She's still gripping the steering wheel with her left hand, not because she's refusing, but because she doesn't have the coordination to let go. Martinez interprets this as resistance. He opens the driver's side door and reaches in to grab Sarah's arm. "Come on, out of the car," he says, pulling on her arm. Sarah's body is limp, dead weight. She slides sideways in the seat, unable to support herself. Martinez catches her before she falls completely, but he's annoyed now, frustrated that she's making this difficult. "Jesus, how much did you have?" He pulls her out of the car. The body camera shows Sarah's legs buckling as soon as her feet hit the pavement. She can't stand. She collapses against Martinez, who has to hold her upright. To him, this is extreme intoxication. He's thinking she must be 2 or 3 times over the legal limit to be this impaired. He doesn't consider for a second that this might be something else. He's been trained to look for signs of DUI. He's been trained to administer field sobriety tests, but he's never been properly trained to recognize the symptoms of diabetic shock. Never been taught that hypoglycemia can mimic intoxication almost perfectly. Martinez spins Sarah around and pulls her arms behind her back. The handcuffs click into place. First the right wrist, then the left. The medical ID bracelet is now trapped under the metal cuff. Still visible, but ignored. Sarah makes a sound, something between a whimper and a moan, but she's too far gone to form words anymore. Martinez walks her to his patrol car, supporting most of her weight. He opens the back door and guides her into the back seat. Sarah immediately slumps against the window. Her eyes close. "Stay awake," Martinez orders. But Sarah doesn't respond. Because Sarah is unconscious now. Her blood sugar has dropped below 35 milligrams per deciliter. Her brain is starving for glucose. Every second that passes without treatment is a second closer to permanent brain damage. Or death. But Martinez doesn't know this. He sees a drunk driver passing out in his back seat, and he thinks it's just part of the process. They always sober up eventually. He closes the door, returns to Sarah's car to turn off the ignition and lock it. Then he gets behind the wheel of his patrol car and radios dispatch. "Show me en route to the station with one in custody, suspected DUI." The drive to the station takes 14 minutes. Sarah doesn't move the entire time. 14 minutes while her blood sugar continues to drop. 14 minutes while her brain starves. 14 minutes closer to the point of no return. The Columbus Police Department's downtown substation is a squat brick building with a small booking area and end holding cells. Martinez parks in the rear lot, opens the back door, tries to rouse Sarah. "Hey, wake up! We're here!" She doesn't respond. He shakes her shoulder, harder this time. "Ma'am, I need you to wake up." Nothing. Martinez is starting to feel the first flutter of concern, but he pushes it down. She's just really drunk, that's all. He unbuckles her seatbelt and pulls her out of the car. Her body is completely limp. He has to half carry, half drag her into the station. The booking desk officer looks up as Martinez struggles through the door with Sarah. "DUI," Martinez explains. "She's pretty far gone." You call for a blood draw? About to. She's not going to blow. She can barely stay conscious. Martinez gets Sarah into a chair in the booking area. She slumps forward immediately, and he has to position her against the wall to keep her from sliding onto the floor. He calls the on-call medic service that contracts with the police department. David Rodriguez has been working as a paramedic for 12 years before he started taking side shifts doing blood draws for police DUI arrests. It's easy money. Usually takes 15 minutes, and he gets paid $80 per draw. He arrives at the station 23 minutes after Martinez calls. He walks into the booking area carrying his kit, a small black bag with needles, tubes, alcohol wipes, and gloves. He's done hundreds of these draws. He can spot a drunk from across the room. But when he sees Sarah slumped in the chair, something immediately feels wrong. David approaches and kneels down in front of her. He puts his hand on her shoulder. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" No response. He touches her forehead. Her skin is cold and clammy, covered in sweat. David has been a paramedic long enough to know that drunks are usually warm to the touch, flushed from alcohol-induced vasodilation. Cold and clammy is something else. He takes her wrist to check her pulse, and that's when he sees it. "She's wearing a medical ID bracelet," David says, his voice sharp. He looks up at Martinez. "Did you check this?" Martinez shifts uncomfortably. "She mentioned something about it, but she was slurring really bad." David is already turning the bracelet to read it. The engraving is clear. Sarah Mitchell, Type 1, Diabetic insulin dependent. There's an emergency contact number. David's expression changes instantly from routine boredom to controlled urgency. He looks at Sarah's face again, at the pallor, the sweat, the complete unresponsiveness. He pulls a penlight from his pocket and checks her pupils. They're reactive but sluggish. "This isn't booze," David says. He's already reaching into his bag, pulling out a glucose meter. "She's crashing. Get me glucose gel, now." Martinez stands frozen. "What?" "She's hypoglycemic. Her blood sugar's in the basement. This is a medical emergency, not a DUI. Where's your glucose gel?" I don't have... Jesus Christ! David is moving fast now. He pricks Sarah's finger with the lancet, squeezes out a drop of blood, touches it to the test strip. The meter beeps. The number that appears makes David's stomach drop. 28 mg/dl. Normal blood glucose is between 70 and 100. Below 40 is dangerous. Below 30 is life-threatening. At 28, Sarah is minutes from seizure or coma. David doesn't have time to be gentle. He grabs Sarah's jaw and forces her mouth open. He has a small tube of glucose gel in his kit, a concentrated sugar paste designed for exactly this situation. He squeezes half the tube into her mouth, between her cheek and gum, hoping some of it will absorb through her mucous membranes. "Call 911, he orders Martinez. "Tell them we need EMS for a diabetic emergency. Conscious but unresponsive. Blood glucose of 28. Martinez is pale now. He's starting to understand that he didn't arrest a drunk driver. He arrested a dying woman. He fumbles for his radio. "Dispatch, I need EMS to the station. Diabetic emergency." David keeps working. He elevates Sarah's legs to help blood flow to her brain. He checks her pulse again, counts the rapid, thready beats. He squeezes the rest of the glucose gel into her mouth, and then he waits. Glucose gel can work fast if the patient can absorb it. It can raise blood sugar within 10 to 15 minutes. But Sarah is so far gone that David isn't sure if she'll be able to metabolize it fast enough. If her blood sugar keeps dropping, she'll seize. If she seizes, she could aspirate, could stop breathing, could suffer brain damage. David has seen diabetics die from prolonged hypoglycemia. It's not common, but it happens. 3 minutes pass, then 4. David checks her blood sugar again. 32 mmol/dl. It's rising, but slowly. He gives her more glucose gel, talking to her the entire time, even though she can't hear him. "Come on, Sarah, stay with me. We're getting sugar into you. You're going to be okay." At 6 minutes, he checks again. 41. Miligras DL. Better. At 8 minutes, Sarah's eyelids flutter. At 9 minutes, her eyes open. She's confused, disoriented, but she's conscious. David nearly cries with relief. The EMS crew arrives 11 minutes after Martinez's call. They come through the door with a stretcher and a jump bag. David gives them a rapid handoff. Type 1 diabetic, severe hypoglycemic episode, initial blood glucose of 28, now up to 42 after oral glucose gel. The paramedics start an IV line and push dextrose, the fast-acting sugar solution that will bring Sarah's levels back to normal. Within 5 minutes of the IV push, Sarah is alert enough to speak. "What happened?" she whispers. "You crashed," David says gently. "Your sugar bottomed out. You're going to be okay now." Sarah's eyes fill with tears. "I tried to tell him. I told him I was sick." David looks at Martinez, who is standing against the wall, his face ashen. "Yeah," David says quietly. "I know." Sarah is transported to Grant Medical Center, where she spends 6 hours in the emergency department, being monitored and stabilized. She's released that night with instructions to follow up with her endocrinologist. She goes home, crawls into bed, and cries for an hour straight. She cries from relief at being alive. She cries from the trauma of being handcuffed while dying. She cries from the humiliation of being treated like a criminal when she needed help. And she cries from rage. Because she did everything right, and it still almost killed her. She pulled over. She wore her medical bracelet. She tried to communicate. She did everything she was supposed to do, and none of it mattered. The body camera footage is reviewed the next morning by Sergeant Maria Kowalski, Martinez's direct supervisor. She watches the entire encounter. Twice. She sees Sarah slurring her words, sees her holding up the medical bracelet, sees Martinez glance at it and dismiss it. She sees him drag a clearly incapacitated woman out of a car and handcuff her. She sees him drive her to the station while she loses consciousness in the back seat. Kowalski has been a cop for 19 years. She's made mistakes. Every cop has. But this isn't a mistake. This is negligence. This is a failure so fundamental that it could have resulted in death. Kowalski elevates the footage to the chief. The chief watches it and immediately calls the city's legal department. The legal department watches it and immediately starts calculating settlement figures. Because everyone who sees this footage understands the same thing. The city is liable. An officer ignored a medical alert bracelet, arrested a woman in diabetic shock, and nearly let her die in custody. If Sarah had died, the city would be facing a wrongful death lawsuit in the tens of millions. As it stands, they're facing a civil rights violation, negligence, and massive public relations damage. Officer Derek Martinez is placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The investigation takes 3 weeks. The conclusion is unambiguous. Martinez failed to recognize a medical emergency, ignored clear medical identification, and endangered a citizen's life. The disciplinary board recommends termination. The chief concurs. Martinez is fired after 9 months on the force. His peace officer certification is permanently revoked. Sarah hires a civil rights attorney who specializes in police misconduct cases. They file a federal lawsuit against the city of Columbus and Officer Martinez, alleging false arrest, violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, deliberate indifference to serious medical needs, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. And the city's attorneys watch the body camera footage and know they can't win at trial. No jury would watch that video and side with the city. They offer to settle. After negotiations, they settle for $575,000. Sarah takes the money and uses part of it to start a foundation that provides free medical alert training to law enforcement agencies. She wants to make sure no other diabetic goes through what she went through. The story breaks in the local news first. Then it goes regional, then national. The body camera footage is released to the media and goes viral. Within 48 hours, it's been viewed 20 million times. The comments are universally outraged. How do you ignore a medical bracelet? How do you not know the difference between drunk and dying? How does someone this incompetent become a police officer? The Columbus Police Department issues a statement expressing regret for the incident and announcing new mandatory training on recognizing medical emergencies. The training includes a 2-hour module on diabetes, specifically covering the symptoms of hypoglycemia and the importance of medical alert jewelry. The module uses Sarah's case as the primary example of what not to do. 6 months after the incident, Sarah sits in her living room watching a news segment about police reform. The segment features her case prominently, showing the body camera footage and interviewing her attorney. Sarah has mostly recovered from the physical trauma. Her blood sugar is back under control. She's back at work, reading to kindergartners about dinosaurs. But the psychological scars are deeper. She has nightmares about being in the back of that patrol car, about feeling herself slip away while handcuffed and helpless. She has panic attacks when she sees police cars. She had to go to therapy to process the trauma. She wears her medical bracelet every single day. But now she wonders if it even matters, if an officer could see it and ignore it once. What's to stop it from happening again? My friends, let me tell you something. What happened to Sarah wasn't an anomaly. It's not a one-time thing. It's a symptom of a larger problem in law enforcement. Inadequate medical training combined with confirmation bias. Police officers are taught to look for signs of criminal activity. They're trained to spot drunk drivers, to identify drug use, to recognize threatening behavior. But they're not trained nearly enough to recognize medical emergencies that mimic criminal behavior. Diabetic shock looks like intoxication. Stroke symptoms can look like drug use. Autism can look like resistance. And when an officer decides what they're looking at within the first 30 seconds, it becomes almost impossible for them to change their mind, even when evidence contradicts their initial assumption. Officer Martinez saw a drunk driver because that's what he expected to see. Slurred speech, drunk, sweating, drunk, glassy eyes, drunk, unable to stand, drunk. Every symptom fit the narrative he'd constructed in his head. The medical bracelet didn't fit, so he discarded it. Sarah's pleas didn't fit, so he dismissed them as excuses. His brain filtered out anything that contradicted his conclusion. Because accepting that he was wrong would have required him to admit he didn't know what he was looking at. And young officers desperate to prove themselves rarely admit uncertainty. This is the lesson that needs to be burned into every police academy curriculum, every field training program, every roll call briefing. A badge does not make you a doctor. Law enforcement officers are first responders, and that means they need to be able to recognize medical emergencies at least as well as they recognize criminal behavior. They need to know that slurred speech and confusion can mean a dozen things besides intoxication. They need to be taught to look for medical alert jewelry and actually read it. They need to understand that diabetes, seizures, strokes, and head injuries can all present symptoms that look like being drunk or high. And they need to be trained to call for medical help immediately when there's any doubt. Because the cost of being wrong is measured in lives. Sarah survived because a paramedic happened to know what diabetic shock looked like. If David Rodriguez hadn't been there, if the on-call medic that day had been someone less experienced, Sarah might have stayed in that chair for another hour while her blood sugar continued to drop. She might have seized. She might have slipped into a coma. She might have died in police custody, and Officer Martinez would have called it a tragic accident. Would have said she must have been on drugs or had some underlying condition. Would have never accepted that his refusal to look at a bracelet killed someone. But David was there, and the body camera was recording, and now the world knows what happened. That's the only reason there were consequences. That's the only reason Martinez was fired instead of quietly transferred. That's the only reason Sarah got justice instead of just a death certificate. The camera captured every second of the encounter, preserved the evidence of negligence in perfect digital clarity, made it impossible for the department to sweep this under the rug. Without that camera, it would have been Sarah's word against Martinez's. And we all know how that usually ends. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this. Medical alert jewelry exists for a reason. Those bracelets and necklaces aren't fashion accessories. They're emergency communication devices for people whose bodies can turn against them without warning. If you see one, read it. If you're a police officer and you see one, read it twice. Because the person wearing it is counting on you to understand that they're not drunk. They're not high. They're not resisting. They're sick. They're scared. And they need help, not handcuffs. Sarah pulled over to save her own life. She recognized the symptoms, made the responsible choice to stop driving, waited for the crisis to pass. She did everything right, and she was still arrested, still handcuffed, still left to lose consciousness in the back of a police car. That's the nightmare. Not that officers make mistakes, but that the systems in place allow those mistakes to nearly kill people before anyone notices something's wrong. Sarah survived because she got lucky. The next person might not be so lucky. That's why we tell these stories. That's why we demand better training, better policies, better accountability. Because a badge comes with immense power, and that power has to be balanced with the knowledge and humility to use it correctly. Officer Martinez had the power. He didn't have the knowledge. And Sarah almost paid for that ignorance with her life. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, if it made you scared, good, because that means you understand what's at stake. Hit that subscribe button, share this video, talk about it, because awareness is the first step toward change, and change is the only thing that will save the next Sarah Mitchell. Thank you for listening, and please, if you see a medical bracelet, read it.